Incredible twist. Millionaire fakes illness, but humiliated maid reveals hidden truth in one moment. Sarah wiped the sweat from her brow as she stood in the lavish Fairbanks mansion. The sun streamed through the grand windows, casting golden rays across the marble floor, but the beauty of the home felt hollow. The laughter of children echoed outside, a sharp contrast to her own life, a life spent battling exhaustion and worry. As a single mother in Maplewood, her days were long, and her heart felt even heavier. Every evening, she returned to her little apartment, where her two kids, Lily and Noah, waited, wide-eyed and innocent, asking, "Did you have a good day, Mommy?" She always forced a smile, masking the fatigue that held her captive. Yet, Daniel Fairbanks, her wealthy employer, thrived in the lap of luxury, cloaked in a fabricated illness that tugged at the hearts of many. Sarah's heart twisted each time she watched him play the part of false martyr feasting on the kindness of those around him. It gnawed at her, this dishonest act, while she scrambled to provide for her children, who looked up at her like she was the sun. They deserved more than a mother who wiped dust from the rich and powerful point one afternoon. As the scent of freshly polished wood filled the air, Sarah took a deep breath, readying herself for another long day. It was then she accidentally overheard Daniel's hushed conversation with a business partner. The words sliced through the room like a knife. "These payouts will keep me set for life. It's the perfect cover." Her heart raced as she pieced together the truth behind his facade. Anger bubbled within her. How could he manipulate the generosity of others? Sarah had spent countless hours scrubbing his mess, all while having to look her kids in the eye and tell them everything would be okay. The thought of his deception made her chest tighten, each breath becoming a battle of indignation against his choices. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the charity event drew closer, Sarah felt the weight of her decision growing heavier. Each tick of the clock seemed to echo her anxiety as she envisioned stepping into the neatly curated world of wealth, where she felt like a daughter of the dust, invisible and underappreciated. Her children's sweet faces replayed in her mind, reminding her of why she needed to act. She owed it to them to be brave. When the night of the event arrived, the mansion buzzed with excitement. Daniel delivered his rehearsed speech with slick charm, basking in the crowd's admiration. Sarah stood at the fringe, heart in her throat. Would they believe her? Would they turn their backs on her? But then she spotted Lily and Noah. Their trust-filled eyes felt like a beacon, urging her onward. This was her moment, to break free from the chains of silence that held her. Just as she mustered the courage to speak, a sudden crash echoed through the room, stealing the crowd's attention. All eyes turned toward the commotion, the air thick with anticipation and disbelief. Every heartbeat within her screamed for justice. But would her unyielding truth find its voice in the chaos? A loud bang sent shockwaves through the elegant ballroom, causing Sarah to jump. She turned to find a young waiter, his tray of liqueurs scattered on the floor, a crimson stain spreading across the white carpet. Gasps filled the air as eyes focused on the mess, save for a few who were observing Sarah, their curiosity brewing. In that moment, she felt a surge of adrenaline. The crash was more than just a distraction. It was a crack in the carefully constructed facade that Daniel had built. The attention diverted, Sarah grasped this opportunity, her breath steadied as she crossed the room, edging closer to the spotlight. "Excuse me," she shouted, her voice trembling with fury and fear. "I have something to say." Hushed whispers circulated. Heads turned, and Daniel's smile faltered as he met her gaze. Uncertainty flickered in his eyes. She pressed on, fueled by the image of her children, who had stayed up late just to see their mommy get some recognition. "This isn't what you think. He isn't ill, he's faking it." The crowd gasped, murmurs rippling like a wave. Daniel regained his composure, stepping toward her, his expression hardening. "Sarah, this is inappropriate. You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, but I do." Sarah's voice cracked, but she pushed through. "I heard your conversation with your partner. You're just playing everyone doing this for money. People are donating out of pity, like it's some sad little story. The atmosphere electrified, shock widening eyes across the room. She felt their gaze shift from Daniel to her. This was her moment, free of the exhaustion that swallowed her whole. The truth surged through her like wildfire, feeding her courage. I've worked for you, scrubbed your floors, and all while telling my children you're a hero. But you're not. You're a coward. And you're deceiving good people who are trying to help. Gasps echoed again, and her confidence soared. The lavish life that surrounded her suddenly felt like a cage, and she was ready to break the bars. For too long, she had lived in the shadows of a lie. It was time to step into her own light. Just then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw movement. A figure in the doorway, a journalist, someone she recognized, a friend of her late father S., who had always promised to help her find her way. He lifted his camera, focusing it on her, his face urging her to keep going. The energy in the room shifted. Attendees began murmuring amongst themselves, their glances darting between her and Daniel. Sarah's heart raced. Would they side with her? Or were they too entranced by the glittering illusion he created? Daniel's composure shattered, revealing a flash of anger. You're going to ruin everything. You'll regret this. No, Sarah replied, stepping forward, fiercely defiant. What's ruining everything is your selfishness. I won't be silent anymore. This truth is bigger than both of us. Suddenly, someone from the crowd spoke up. She's right. I've seen him around town. He's never sick. Another echoed the sentiment, and a chant began to rise, building with momentum. The tension thickened, and it felt as if the room might explode. Sarah's pulse quickened. This was it. The moment she longed for the possibility of not just exposing the truth, but also reclaiming her own narrative. But before she could gather the words to press her case further, Daniel lunged forward, desperation etched in his face. You can't do this to me. I'll destroy you. Try it. She shot back, the heat of adrenaline warming her blood. And just like that, the air buzzed with conflict, hope, and heartache warring. What would happen next? Would Daniel fight to maintain his empire of lies? Would Sarah's courage pave the way toward her freedom, or bury her deep into despair? As the crowd watched, breaths held with uncertainty, one thing was clear. The lies were about to unravel, spinning them all into a world where truths lay bare, and hearts would either break or mend. But what she didn't expect was the arrival of someone who would tip the scales even further. The doors swung open with a force that echoed across the ballroom like a thunderclap, drawing everyone's attention to the newcomer. A tall woman with a commanding presence strode in, her designer dress and fierce expression contrasting sharply against the backdrop of the formal event. Sarah recognized her immediately. Emma Marsh, a prominent investigative journalist, known for uncovering scandals. It felt like the universe was tipping in her favor. Emma, Sarah shouted, her heart racing, hope bubbling within her. You have to hear this. Emma's eyes scanned the room, settling on Sarah first. She could see the determination etched on Sarah's face. What is going on? Emma's voice was steady, yet it held an urgency as she stepped closer. There has been a lie. A huge one, Sarah began, her words tumbling out like they were desperate to escape. Daniel isn't sick. He is faking it. He is taking advantage of people's kindness to make money. Gasps filled the room again, the veil of disbelief beginning to lift. Emma raised her camera, capturing the fervor in Sarah's eyes, the distant shadows of doubt falling away from the onlookers. It was turning into a spectacle, the very kind that Emma thrived on. Talk to me, Sarah, Emma insisted, stepping into the light. Tell me everything you know. Daniel loomed behind Sarah, his features twisted into a mask of fury and betrayal. You don't want to get involved in this, Emma, he growled, his voice low and threatening. This is beneath you. Or maybe it's exactly what I'm here for. Emma shot back, flipping her camera to focus on Daniel. Keep your distance. He barked, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone. But the crowd was shifting, the tension thickening like a storm on the horizon. People began to murmur, eyes darting from Sarah to Daniel, their allegiances realigning before their very eyes. Did you really think you could fool everyone forever? Emma challenged, her voice cutting through the chaos. People need to know the truth. I'll have you both ruined. Daniel yelled, but the threat seemed to hang in the air, devoid of real power. Ruined? Or exposed? Sarah's voice rang out. She turned to face the crowd, her grit shining through. You've all been manipulated. This man has put on a show while I've been slaving away, believing in a lie. I'm not the only one who deserves a spotlight. He shouldn't be playing with our lives. As those words echoed, she watched as the crowd began to vibrate with energy, a ripple of anger and disbelief. Support gathered like a storm cloud, powerful and imminent. People donate their hard-earned money. One voice chimed from the back. They trusted you. Sarah's heart soared. This was the support she had yearned for. She could finally feel the weight of despair lifting, the glimmer of validation stirring within her. But just as the crowd began forming into a collective voice of outrage, Daniel's eyes darted, calculating, seeking an exit. You'll regret this, Sarah? He spat, his voice laced with venom. Regretting the truth? Sarah called after him, her own voice stronger. This betrayal won't define me anymore. The tension was both electric and agonizing as everyone waited for Daniel to make his move. But would he run, or would he lash out? The air was thick with anticipation. Emma was ready, already poised to capture the pivotal moment, the truth ready to shatter the glittering illusions once and for all. But suddenly, another figure emerged from the shadows one Sarah hadn't anticipated. The sight made her stomach twist. It was Daniel's partner, and his expression was one of foreboding. Sarah, he shouted, his voice laced with urgency. You don't understand the whole story. There's something you need to know, and that declaration hung precariously in the air, an invitation to the depth of darkness behind the facade. What revelation could possibly follow? The murmurs surged through the crowd as Daniel's partner, Alex, stepped into the light. His stance was defensive, but there was an urgency in his eyes that caught everyone's attention. Sarah's heart raced again. What could he possibly know that would change everything? Alex, what are you talking about? She demanded, her voice firmer now, but uncertainty flickered through her. What could you possibly say that would justify Daniel's actions? He took a deep breath, scanning the faces of the people in front of him. You think this is just about the money? You don't know the full story. Daniel has been through things that go beyond sickness, things that twisted his reality. You have to understand, it's not what you think. The crowd quieted, their curiosity piqued. Was there a chance that all of this was more complicated than fraudulent behavior? Sarah felt a pang deep within. Trust was fragile, and revelations could easily scatter it to the wind. Then tell me, Emma shouted, pointing her camera directly at Alex, her intensity matching the growing heat in the room. What is the truth? Daniel stood frozen, fury painting his features. Alex, don't. You'll ruin everything. But Alex shook his head, his voice trembling with emotion. I can't stay silent anymore. People trusted you, Daniel. They believed in what you're pretending to be, but the lies are suffocating. What lies? Sarah pressed, desperation lurking in her voice. You want us to believe there's a reason behind what Daniel's doing? Yes. Alex burst out, his resolve hardening. I never wanted this to happen, but Daniel was sick once, truly sick. That was real. But then something broke inside him, something far worse than any illness. Trust me, it twisted his mind, and when he found a new way to survive, he latched onto it. A shocked gasp rippled through the crowd. Sarah's stomach dropped. Daniel had once faced a serious illness, but faking another one? Emma countered. How does that make it better? He's deceiving people at their most vulnerable. I know, Alex admitted, his voice softening. But he wasn't always this way. I don't condone what he has done, but he needed help, real help. And instead, he saw people's anguish as a path to get what he wanted. Help? Sarah echoed incredulously. And he thought lying to everyone would lead him there? Alex looked at Sarah, his expression raw. Hurt people hurt people. It spiraled out of control. I thought I could save him, but now I don't know what to do. The truth was unspooling around them, messy and tangled like a wild vine. Sarah clenched her fists, her heart aching for the truth, but also for the betrayal she felt from Daniel. This doesn't excuse what he did, she said, her voice trembling. But why now? Why reveal this? I didn't want it to come out in public, Alex sighed. But this isn't just about the money anymore. It's about accountability. I can't let him hurt people any longer. The crowd shifted again, eyes darting between Alex and Daniel, the tension thickening. The narrative was transforming, shadows of doubt leaking into the light. What do you want us to do? Someone shouted from the side. The question echoed around the ballroom, bringing everyone's focus back to the core of the issue. What came next? I want to stop this cycle, Alex pleaded, desperation spilling from his eyes. Someone needs to save him and bring this to the surface. Sarah felt a wave of emotion crash into her. There was too much at stake, too many lives intertwined in this lie. Just then, Daniel broke the silence. His voice was trembling, defensive yet vulnerable. You think this will save me? And as the crowd held its collective breath, Sarah's heart raced, torn between the truth she fought for and the mirage of compassion. What would it mean to challenge Daniel's reality? Would exposing his darkness trap him further, or give everyone a chance to heal? And what about us? She whispered, the words slipping out, raw and vulnerable. As the room fell silent, the storm brewing inside turned chaotic, and all eyes landed on Sarah. She clasped her hands tightly, desire tangled with fear. Could she bear the burden of what was to come? The air crackled with unspoken words, but deep down, one question echoed louder than the rest. Was confronting the lies worth risking so much when the darkness was so deep? As the silence stretched, Sarah felt the weight of the room pressing in on her. The faces around her, once familiar, now seemed like an audience, watching her grapple with the enormity of the moment. In that instant, she felt both a fragile strength and an overwhelming terror. How could she speak and still take a stand? Daniel, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Why did you have to go so far? His gaze faltered, and for a flicker of a second, she thought she could see the boy he once was, the one who laughed easily and worried about mundane things like pickup basketball games and weekend plans. But now, the weight of his choices clouded those memories. I thought I was winning, Daniel finally said, his tone thick with regret. Winning at life, at surviving. How can this be winning? Sarah's heart was racing, anger and hurt competing for dominance. You're losing everything: your friends, your credibility. The crowd shifted restlessly, whispers rising and falling like waves, a storm building on the horizon. They were as hungry for answers as she was, caught in this whirlwind of emotion and betrayal. I didn't want to face the truth, Daniel admitted, his voice trembling. I was scared. Maybe I thought if I played it out, I could find some meaning in my pain. Or perhaps you thought it would fill the empty space inside you. Alex interjected sharply, and she sensed his frustration was less about Daniel's actions and more about the deep friendship that was now unraveling. Daniel fell silent, his anger snuffed out by shame. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just thought what? Emma snapped, her camera capturing every flicker of this unraveling drama. Thought you could fake illness and it would save you? From the corner, someone shouted. But what about those who actually need help? You took resources from those people. Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes. It was true. This wasn't only about Daniel. It was about real lives, real suffering, and his deception marred those invisible battles. Enough, Daniel barked abruptly, finding his footing again. You don't understand. I thought this was my path to atone for my past. By lying? Alex stepped forward, arms crossed against his chest. By dragging people down with you? It spiraled out of control, Daniel shouted, the vulnerability cracking beneath the surface. And now I have no idea how to fix it. Every heartbeat felt like a drum echoing inside Sarah's chest. If there was a lesson to be learned here, it would need to be extracted from the twisting mess before them. What if we all stepped forward together? She asked, surprising even herself with the words. What if we turned this into something? She paused, searching for the term that didn't sound trite. Something good? Something that helps? More murmurs surged through the crowd. People looked at one another, an ember of hope flickering despite the darkness. Do you think you could change, Daniel? Sarah pressed, her voice even but filled with truth. Really change? He hesitated, the battle between shame and redemption visible in his eyes. I'm terrified of the unknown, but I'm even more afraid of what I've become. In that moment, a strange stillness enveloped the room. The air shimmered with possibilities. Was change truly attainable? Could accountability usher a new dawn for Daniel? And just when she thought they might find a path forward, a shriek pierced the air. Look! Someone pointed toward the entrance while the crowd turned. All eyes widened as a figure stepped into view, a woman clutching a stack of papers, her face flushed with urgency. I have information that changes everything. What had she stumbled into? Sarah felt dread coiling in her stomach. Would this revelation pull them back into chaos, or offer the answers they so desperately needed? With the growing tension begging for resolution, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this new twist could rewrite their already shattered narrative. The woman with the papers took a deep breath, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an anchor. "Please, just hear me out," she pleaded, her voice trembling. The papers slipped through her fingers, cascading to the floor like fallen leaves, drawing gasps from those nearby that Sarah's heart raced. This was either a moment of reckoning or a disastrous detour. The crowd's whispers intensified, curiosity laced with anxiety. Daniel stepped back, his face paling, unable to mask the rising tide of dread within him. "What do you know?" Sarah stepped forward, her gaze locked with the newcomer's frantic one. "Who are you?" "I'm Jenna," she stated, still breathless, "and I work at the restaurant where he pretended to be sick. I have proof." With trembling hands, Jenna gathered the scattered papers, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and fear. She held up one sheet, her voice steadying. "When Daniel first came to us, I thought he was just another customer until I overheard him talking about his plan. He was selling stories about illnesses and collecting donations while he was perfectly fine." "What?" Sean, one of Daniel's former friends, gasped, his voice filled with disbelief. The crowd leaned in, captivated by deepening intrigue as Jenna revealed the threads of deceit. The money he raised? It was meant to benefit cancer patients, but instead it went into his pockets. She continued, her voice steadying. "I started putting the pieces together when I recognized a name from a story. A woman who really needs that money, a woman I know." The atmosphere thickened, tension palpable as the weight of her words sank in. Sarah felt anger whirl within her, swirling with the complexities of compassion. Could Daniel truly be this lost? "I never meant for it to get this far," Daniel blurted, desperation spilling out. I thought I could help. I was wrong, but I never wanted to hurt anyone." "Then help us." Jenna shot back, glaring at him, her tone sharp. "You've already caused so much pain." Now, Sarah's heart ached at the thought of being trapped between Daniel's long-faded laughter from their shared childhood and the fractured reality of his choices. "Daniel, what you've done is beyond regret," she said, the words catching in her throat. "But there is still a choice before you. You have to make it right." Daniel's gaze darted, as if the weight of their collective scrutiny pressed down like chains. How? How can I make it right after this?" The crowd fell silent, each person wrestling with their emotions, their hopes locked away in fear and disbelief. Sarah felt a shift in the atmosphere, shock and resentment coiling tightly like a spring ready to snap. Jenna swept the floor with her papers, her expression softening slightly. "You can start by being honest." There was an underlying hint of understanding in her voice, revealing a glimpse of shared humanity. "Honestly, what does that even look like?" Daniel whispered, his voice cracking, fear flickering in his eyes. "It's too late, isn't it?" "No." Sarah stepped closer, her voice fierce but kind. "It's not too late. You have to own this, to admit your mistakes publicly. You can use this moment to raise awareness, to help others get the support they truly need." As Daniel gazed into the faces surrounding him, Sarah could see the storm of his emotions. The anger and pain, the hope and fear. Would he rise up to the challenge? Just then, another voice broke through the tension. "What if he doesn't?" Emma asked, her camera poised and focused, ready to capture every raw moment unfolding. "What if he refuses to face what he has done?" The room held its breath. The stakes had suddenly climbed higher, and Sarah's heart pounded strong in her chest. Would honesty prevail? Would Daniel finally step out of the shadows to embrace the daunting path ahead? And as the cacophony of uncertainty loomed before them, she wondered, could this revelation be the light in the darkness, or would it swallow them whole? With every second ticking by, the answer hung precariously in the air, just out of reach. What lay ahead for Daniel and all of them? Would true redemption ever come, or was it all just a mirage? Daniel shifted uncomfortably, the spotlight on him feeling more like a noose than a lifeline. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The crowd waited, breaths held, their faces a mixture of anticipation and disbelief. What if he doesn't? Emma's question echoed in his mind, wrapping around his thoughts like a chain. What if he couldn't step up? What if this was at the end of everything he thought he could achieve? Daniel, Sarah urged, her voice steady despite the rising tension. Remember who you were before all of this? The memories flooded back, like an old movie playing at warp speed. Laughter with friends, family dinners filled with warmth, supporting his mom when she struggled. He could feel her touch still, the way she'd wipe his tears when he was down. But those memories faltered, overshadowed by the darkness he had created. I thought I could help, he finally managed to say, his voice barely a whisper. I thought I could convince people to care. I wanted to matter. How does stealing from those who truly need help matter? Sean challenged, stepping forward, anger coloring his voice. It was a voice of someone betrayed, the sting of friendship twisted into something unrecognizable. I didn't think it would go this far, Daniel protested, his frustration spilling into desperation. A part of him screamed for understanding, for someone to see he hadn't intended the hurt. You don't get to decide how far this goes, Daniel. Jenna shot back, her eyes fierce. You can't play the victim when you've done this to so many people. You think those who really suffer have the luxury of pretending? Sarah nodded in agreement, feeling the heat of Jenna's words sink in. They were all just waiting for him to show the man he could still be, somewhere deep down within. But what if that man didn't exist anymore? The silence stretched on, tightening around them like a heavy blanket. Daniel's breaths turned ragged. Every second felt like an eternity as the eyes of the crowd weighed heavy upon him, their stares dissecting him piece by piece. Daniel, Sarah said softly, stepping closer. This is your moment. You have to make the choice. What do you want your life to be? A facade built on lies or a truth that helps others? The doubt swirled in his mind like a tornado, the weight of their expectations thick in the air. Could he really face it all? Could he bear the fallout, the disappointment, the anger, the shame? Tell us the truth, Emma urged, still holding her camera steady, capturing the rawness of the moment. Daniel closed his eyes, forcing back the tide of regrets and fears. He wanted to run, to hide, but instead something deep within stirred. A flicker of resolve ignited beneath the cloak of shame. Maybe there was a way out of this darkness, a light at the end of the tunnel if he chose to reveal everything. He hesitated, heart racing. I will tell the truth. Around him, the crowd shifted subtly as if holding their breath on the brink of something monumental. Could they feel it too? I just wanted to be seen, he continued, raw vulnerability cracking his voice. But now I see the damage I've done, and I'm ready to face the consequences. The room seemed to inhale collectively, hope mingling with uncertainty. Just then, a soft but determined voice chimed in. Then let us help you. Let us turn this around together. The tension loosened, a fragile bond forming within the crowd as they waited for Daniel's next move. But before he could respond, his phone buzzed violently in his pocket, a distraction tearing through the moment. The screen lit up, casting a harsh light on his face, and the name flashing there made his blood run cold. Would this message bring the final hammer down on everything he'd just begun to fight for? Would it tilt the fragile balance, shattering the hope that had just blossomed? As fear washed over him, Daniel took a deep breath. What now? Daniel stared in disbelief at the phone in his hand. The name on the screen was all too familiar. Mark Denton, a figure from his past he had hoped to leave behind. Mark was not just any name. He was a figure of power, influence, and, most terrifyingly, a reminder of everything Daniel had tried to escape. As the crowd murmured uncertainly, the text preview taunted him. We need to talk. This is bigger than you think. Panic gripped him. What could he possibly say? What did Mark know? With trembling hands, he opened the message. His heart hammered in his chest, a steady beat of dread. Memories of their last confrontation flooded back Mark's smug smile. The way he had dangled success just out of reach, always one step ahead. Daniel, Sarah called, snapping him back. Focus. What is going on? Is it something serious? He glanced up, trying to gauge the concern etched on her face, but all he saw was anxiety mixed with expectation. The crowd's energy shifted again, swirling in confusion between their hope and his silence. Mark, he just sent me a message, Daniel stammered, sweat pooling at his palms. I don't know what he wants. Who cares what he wants? Jenna interjected, her anger renewed. You don't owe him anything. You're taking a stand right now. But the stakes felt impossibly high. The moment he had decided to embrace the truth surrounded by this crowd, the reality of Mark's impending threat weighed heavily on his mind. Would Mark expose him? Would he leverage his knowledge to crush what little momentum Daniel had gained? Let it go, Daniel. Sean's voice rose above the murmur. Don't go back into that darkness. You're finally stepping into the light. Daniel's breath hitched. Could he really do that? Fear flickered within him like a candle struggling against the wind, threatening to extinguish the very hope that had begun to take root. Taking a deep breath, he carefully held the phone out, facing the group. It's about the money. Mark, he knows what I've done. He'll use it against me. The crowd shifted, whispers exchanging among them. Shock draped like a cloud, but he understood the transformation in Sarah's eyes, the fierce determination to fight alongside him rather than leave him to battle the storm alone. Then we fight back, Emma shouted, lifting her camera again as if it were a shield. You won't be alone. Together, we'll shine a spotlight on all of it. Together, echoed Sarah. We'll show them that nothing can break a community standing strong. Hope surged within him, momentarily dispelling the shadows that clung to his thoughts. Could he really embrace this newfound strength? As the murmurs of solidarity filled the air, his resolve steeled. He looked from one face to another, their fierce expressions igniting a courage he thought long buried. Daniel pulled himself up taller. You're right. If Mark thinks he's got the upper hand, he's mistaken. I'm done letting him control my life. Just then, his phone buzzed again, jolting him from his declaration, a new urgency rippling through him. He glanced down to see another message from Mark, something that sent a chill racing down his spine. You have 24 hours to decide, or I will reveal everything. The weight of that ultimatum crashed into him like a tidal wave. How much time did he really have to rally this new support? In that moment, Daniel realized that everything had changed yet again. The stakes were higher than ever, and he wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. The rallying cry of hope sprang from the crowd, and there it was, that flicker of light piercing through the cracks of darkness. The choice was his, to succumb to fear or to confront the truth head-on. Get ready, he announced, determination flooding his words. This is just the beginning, but what would he learn about himself in the fight to come? Would there still be pieces of his shattered past lurking in the shadows? As he stood before his friends, everything hung in the balance. What cards would Mark play next? Daniel's heart raced as the weight of Mark's message sank in. 24 hours. It felt like a countdown to an inevitable disaster. The faces around him blurred for a moment as the reality of his situation blanketed his thoughts. He needed a plan, a way to outmaneuver Mark before the clock ran out. Hey, Sarah said, stepping closer, her voice steady amidst the chaos. What did he mean by revealing everything? Daniel swallowed hard, the memory of his past lingering at the edges of his mind like a dark cloud. He knows things I've tried to bury, he finally admitted, his voice trembling. If he goes public, it'll ruin everything I've built here. We need to gather evidence, something to counter whatever he's planning. Emma chimed in, her eyes brightening with a spark of hope. Maybe we can track down any financial records or digital files from back then. Yeah, anything that makes him look more like a threat than a victim, Sean added, nostrils flaring with resolve. Daniel nodded, feeling a jolt of energy surge through him. For the first time since the message arrived, he felt a sense of purpose rather than dread. They were right. If they banded together, they could tackle Mark's threats head-on. Let us split up then, he suggested, his voice stronger now. Who knows what we may find if we're looking for it? Within moments, the group organized into teams, their spirits uplifted by solidarity, each pair moving with a shared determination. Daniel stood still for a moment, his heart full as he watched them. These people weren't just his friends, they were his armor, the shield he never thought he needed. He and Sarah decided to start at his old office. Even though he had left that world behind, a part of him was still connected to it. The familiar hallway loomed before him, each step feeling like a journey through a forgotten chapter filled with fear and regret. That as they reached the office door, it creaked open, revealing a room that felt empty yet heavy with the weight of memories. The desk where he once sat, making deals and careful calculations, now sat cluttered with dust and the remnants of his past. Sarah's eyes darted around, searching for anything useful, while Daniel's gaze tightened on a rickety, old filing cabinet. Maybe there's something in there, he said, the thought both exciting and terrifying. He approached it, fingers trembling as he pulled open the top drawer. Inside were old invoices, folders marked with names from his past that he had tried to forget. But one red folder caught his eye. He pulled it out, heart pounding as he opened it. What he found inside sent chills racing through his body, documents detailing transactions that were not just questionable, but also tied to Mark and potentially illegal activities. "Daniel, what did you find?" Sarah asked, peering over his shoulder. "Stuff that could ruin him." "This isn't just about me anymore," he breathed, the thrill blooming in the pit of his stomach. "We need to bring this to the group," Sarah urged, her eyes alight with excitement. As they gathered their things, ready to share their discovery, Daniel's phone buzzed again. He winced, instinctively knowing it was Mark. "Don't answer it," Sarah said firmly, pulling him back. "Whatever he has to say doesn't matter. Focus on what we have. This could be the turning point." But with the icy grip of hesitation creeping back in, Daniel couldn't shake the sense that time was slipping through his fingers, an unyielding current that would soon drag him down if he didn't act. Just as they stepped out of the office, a shadow crossed their path. It was Jenna, her face pale and frantic. "You need to see this. It's bad, really bad." Daniel felt dread surge anew. What could possibly be worse than an ultimatum lurking over his head? As Jenna's gaze locked onto his with urgency, he knew they were now in deeper than they had ever imagined. The stakes had just become even higher, and there was no turning back now. "Show us," he said, bracing for whatever revelation awaited. What more could Mark know? And how much danger were they truly in as the clock ticked down? Jenna led them to a quiet corner, her eyes darting around to make sure they weren't overheard. "I overheard a conversation at the restaurant. Mark's planning to release audio recordings, things that could ruin all of you." Daniel's stomach turned at the revelation. Audio recordings? His darkest secrets laid bare for anyone to hear. What did he say? He was talking about how he could spin it. Make you out to be the villain, claiming you manipulated everyone while pretending to be ill yourself. It'll destroy your credibility. Sarah clenched her fists at her sides. "We can't let that happen." Jenna nodded, urgency dripping from her voice. "If we don't move fast, this could end badly. We need to beat him to the punch." Daniel felt the despair creeping back in. "But how? What do we even have?" "Those documents might be enough," Sarah reminded him. "Exposing him could turn the tide. But we need a plan." They conferred quickly, and an idea ignited in Daniel's mind. "What if we invite Mark to a public meeting? We can present everything we've found. If we confront him with the truth in front of others, it'll limit his power." "Will he show?" Jenna asked, eyebrows raised. "It's worth a shot. I can be persuasive. If we can get him there, the confirmation of his schemes could be the ace we need in our corner." The energy shifted as everyone agreed. As they solidified their plan, Daniel felt a growing sense of solidarity, a warm glow of hope that pushed back the shadows threatening to engulf him. Later that evening, as Daniel paced his tiny apartment, he faced his greatest fear. A face from the past, lurking just out of sight. His phone buzzed continuously with another message from Mark, the despair rising within him even more. What could he say to make it right? Just as he thought he wouldn't be able to gather the courage to choose hope, he spotted Lily and Noah playing in the corner. Their laughter was a sweet sound that drew him from the precipice. With determination and fear intertwined, Daniel picked up the phone. "Mark, let us meet. I have something to discuss. The public wants answers, and so do I." The response was immediate, a cold, taunting reply that made his heart race. "Don't forget, I hold all the cards." But he didn't have to play into that fear, did he? He had allies now. The following evening, the community center buzzed with anticipation. Daniel stood on a makeshift stage, the scent of fresh paint wafting through the air like a promise. Friends and colleagues filled the seats, a visible show of support that lit a fire within him. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice wavering but growing stronger. "You're here because of something much bigger than me, and I won't let fear dictate my future anymore." As he laid out the documents they'd found, visible evidence of Mark's manipulation, quiet gasps rippled through the audience. He felt the tide of disbelief shift towards fury, a gathering storm fueled by betrayal and injustice. Then, he took a breath and went for broke. Mark is not the victim in this. For too long, we've let his lies go unchallenged. Today it all changes. Suddenly, the door swung open. Mark stepped in, his expression smug yet uneasy. The room quieted, tension hanging thick in the air. "Nice presentation," Daniel, Mark said, his tone dripping with condescension. But you're digging your own grave. Daniel stepped forward, heart racing. I'm here to expose the truth, Mark. You may think you hold all the power, but today the tables have turned. Mark scoffed. You're making a mistake. You don't understand the forces at play. On the contrary, Daniel retorted, his voice steady. The forces that have held me back all my life are right here, and they're no longer going to silence me. As the crowd rallied behind him, uncertainty melted away. Eyes shifted from Daniel to Mark, collective courage igniting like a wildfire. You think you control us? Sarah called from the back, her voice a beacon of strength. We are not victims, you made us fighters. Mark's confident facade began to crack as the crowd erupted into support for Daniel. You may have thought you could manipulate us, Sean shouted, but we've banded together, and together we will rise. The floodgates opened. The testimonies from the crowd poured forth, revealing their own struggles against Mark's hypocritical practices. With every story shared, Daniel felt the weight of shame and fear lift off his shoulders. We have the power of truth now, he declared, looking directly at Mark, who stood frozen. You may have tried to build your empire on lies, but our unity is stronger. The final blow came from Jenna, stepping forward with the audio recordings she had managed to retrieve from Mark's past dealings. Let us play the real truth, she announced confidently. People need to hear it. The room erupted into chaos, but the kind that sparked hope, not darkness. As the truth rang out, loud and clear, Daniel raised his hands to hush the crowd. We will take this to the authorities. The community deserves justice. With a triumphant roar, the crowd united behind Daniel, marking a victorious turning point in a battle they hadn't even realized they were fighting. And standing there, at that moment of realization, Daniel felt renewed, reborn. Mark's empire of deception was crumbling. The echo of laughter filled the air, the voices of those who had fought against the shadows ringing loud and proud. Tomorrow, we start anew, he murmured, surrounded by friends, with the promise of a better community igniting in their hearts. Through every twist and turn, they had emerged stronger. And for Daniel, it was not about the fear anymore, it was about the unwavering power of truth, and all that lay ahead. This was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for the next incredible stories that will unfold. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this heartfelt conclusion. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel with these actions.